The Kola Superdeep Borehole on Russia's Kola Peninsula sits abandoned today, its drilling tower partially destroyed by time and weather. This is the same location where scientists claimed to have recorded sounds from hell in 1989, though sensational retellings often misidentified it as being in Siberia. While that infamous incident captured headlines worldwide, new deep drilling technology in 2025 has companies like Quaise Energy testing millimeter-wave drilling systems that could penetrate deeper than ever before. What really happened at Kola decades ago remains classified, but the answers might lie in understanding how this project began. The competition to drill deeper than anyone had gone before started long before the first Soviet drill bit touched Russian soil. The original Cold War drilling race. When the war ended in 1945, both superpowers scrambled to claim Nazi scientific expertise. Operation Paperclip brought over 1,600 German scientists to America, while Operation Osoviekim recruited over 2,500 to the Soviet Union. Among these captured minds were geologists who had worked on Germany's continental deep drilling program, which had reached depths of 9 kilometers using advanced techniques that were decades ahead of existing technology. Both nations realized these German scientists held the key to unlocking secrets buried miles beneath the surface. The Americans established deep drilling research facilities staffed by former Nazi geologists, while the Soviets created parallel programs using the same German expertise to push drilling technology beyond its limits. What neither side anticipated was that these programs would uncover things that challenged everything they thought they knew about what lay beneath their feet. The public saw the space race unfold on television screens around the world. Sputnik, Yuri Gagarin, Neil Armstrong walking on the moon. But behind the scenes, an equally intense competition was happening in the opposite direction. While rockets pushed toward the stars, drill bits were boring deeper into the earth than ever before. The strategic importance of this underground race went far beyond scientific curiosity. Deep drilling offered governments access to untapped mineral resources and geothermal energy reserves. Military applications included seismic monitoring capabilities that could detect enemy nuclear tests from thousands of miles away. The geological intelligence gathered from deep drilling could reveal structural information about enemy territory that might prove strategically valuable during warfare. The American program, officially called Project Mohole, began drilling in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of Mexico in 1961. The public was told this was a scientific mission to drill through the ocean floor and into the Earth's mantle. The project faced significant technical challenges and budget constraints, ultimately reaching depths of several kilometers before being officially canceled in 1966. The Soviet program was far more secretive. While the Americans made public announcements about their drilling goals, the Soviets revealed almost nothing about their deep Earth exploration. They established multiple drilling sites across remote regions, each one staffed by teams of scientists who had signed agreements that prevented them from discussing their work. The German scientists who had been brought to the USSR were kept under constant surveillance, their families held as leverage to ensure cooperation. By the early 1970s, both programs had achieved drilling depths that seemed impossible just a decade earlier. International drilling projects like Germany's KTB borehole would eventually reach 9.1 kilometers, demonstrating that extreme depth drilling was technically feasible. But strange things started happening as drill bits pushed into uncharted territory. Equipment failures became more frequent, and the failures often made no scientific sense. Drill bits would encounter resistance when geological surveys indicated they should be passing through soft rock. Temperature readings would spike far beyond what thermal models predicted. Scientists at drilling facilities began reporting anomalies that their supervisors immediately classified. At one American site, researchers detected sounds coming from 8 kilometers below the surface. The audio recordings were immediately seized by military officials and never released. A similar incident occurred at a Soviet facility, where drilling operations were suddenly halted after the team reported what they described as impossible readings from their instruments. The competition between the superpowers intensified as these anomalies became more frequent. Intelligence agencies on both sides began recruiting scientists specifically to analyze what was being discovered at extreme depths. The CIA established a dedicated unit to study Soviet drilling activities, while the KGB created its own team to monitor American deep earth programs. Both sides suspected that their opponents were discovering something of strategic importance. The pattern of sudden project cancellations became more common as the Cold War progressed. American drilling operations in Alaska were abruptly terminated in 1973 after reaching 11 kilometers. A Soviet project in Kazakhstan was abandoned the same year at a similar depth. Officials from both countries cited technical problems, but scientists who had worked on these projects later reported that the real reasons for cancellation were classified. Documents released in 2024 reveal that both the CIA and KGB were aware of what they internally called subsurface anomalies by the mid-1970s. These files suggest that some discoveries were considered so sensitive that they were kept secret even from most government officials. The documents reference Category 7 inches findings that required immediate project termination and memory suppression protocols for personnel involved. The 1989 incident that would later become known as the Sounds from Hell was just one of several unexplained events that occurred at deep drilling sites during the Cold War. Similar incidents happened at American facilities in Colorado and Texas, and at Soviet sites in Siberia and the Arctic. Most of these events were successfully covered up, but the Siberian incident was different. Someone on the Soviet drilling team decided to break their silence. The whistleblower who came forward in 1989 claimed that Soviet scientists had accidentally drilled into hell itself. His account seemed ridiculous, but intelligence agencies on both sides knew that something significant had happened at that facility. The site had been abandoned suddenly in 1989, and satellite imagery showed that the entire facility was demolished within weeks of the alleged incident. What happened in Siberia wasn't an isolated event. It was part of a much larger pattern of discoveries that both superpowers had been desperately trying to keep secret. The real question wasn't whether something unusual had been found deep beneath the Earth's surface, but what exactly it was and why governments were so determined to hide it. The Soviets had one project that would provide the perfect cover for their most secretive drilling operations: the Kola Superdeep Borehole project. The Kola Superdeep Borehole project launched in May 1970 with a goal that seemed impossible at the time. Soviet scientists wanted to drill deeper into the Earth than anyone had ever attempted. They chose a remote location on the Kola Peninsula, near the Norwegian border, where the bedrock was ancient and stable. The official mission was to penetrate as far as possible into the Earth's crust, pushing the boundaries of human exploration in the opposite direction of the space race. The Soviet Academy of Sciences allocated massive resources to the project. Teams of geologists, engineers, and drilling specialists worked around the clock using the most advanced equipment available. The drilling tower stood 60 meters tall, and the operation required constant monitoring as the drill bit carved through layer after layer of rock. For the first few years, everything proceeded according to plan. The drill descended through granite formations that matched geological predictions, and scientists collected rock samples that provided valuable data about the Earth's structure. But as the drill pushed past 6 kilometers, the team began encountering formations that didn't match their geological models. Instead of the expected transition to basaltic rock, they found more granite extending far deeper than theory suggested. At around 7 kilometers, the rock samples revealed microscopic fossils of plankton that were 2 billion years old, representing one of the deepest fossil discoveries ever made. These organisms shouldn't have existed at those depths, challenging fundamental assumptions about how life developed on Earth and where it could survive. The deeper the drill went, the more challenging the conditions became. Between 3 and 6 kilometers, the team detected liquid water in formations where water wasn't supposed to exist. The pressure and temperature at those depths should have prevented any liquid from forming, yet their instruments consistently detected flowing water. Chemical analysis revealed that this water had a salinity level twice that of seawater, suggesting it had been trapped in the rock for millions of years. Temperature readings started deviating from predictions around the same depth. Geological models suggested the temperature should reach 100 degrees Celsius at deeper levels, but the actual reading showed 180 degrees Celsius. The extreme heat made drilling increasingly difficult, as the rock became plastic-like rather than solid. Drill bits designed for solid rock couldn't maintain their effectiveness in these conditions, and equipment failures became more frequent. The drilling team reported technical challenges that made continued progress increasingly difficult. Electronic instruments would produce inconsistent readings, and drill bits would encounter unexpected resistance when passing through rock formations. Temperature sensors would register extreme readings that pushed equipment beyond its operational limits. These technical problems forced the team to develop new drilling techniques and modify their equipment to handle the harsh conditions. Project scientists submitted detailed reports about these discoveries to their superiors, documenting the unexpected geological findings and technical challenges. The drilling team received instructions to focus on systematic data collection and to document all anomalies for scientific analysis. Several senior scientists were reassigned to other projects as the operation required. specialists with different expertise to handle the extreme conditions encountered at depth. The Kola project continued for another decade, with the focus remaining on pushing the boundaries of deep drilling technology. The drilling team maintained regular communication schedules with Moscow, and their reports were reviewed by officials from the Academy of Sciences. Military personnel occasionally visited the drilling site to assess the strategic implications of the geological discoveries, as deep drilling technology had potential applications for resource exploration and seismic monitoring. New drilling equipment arrived periodically to replace tools that had been damaged by the extreme conditions. The technology represented the most advanced drilling capabilities available, allowing operations to continue despite temperatures and pressures that exceeded the limits of conventional equipment. This equipment enabled the team to push the borehole to depths that had never been achieved before. The project achieved its maximum depth of 12,262 meters in 1989, setting a record that still stands today. The accomplishment demonstrated that Soviet drilling technology could penetrate one-third of the way through the Earth's crust, providing unprecedented access to geological formations that had never been studied before. The scientific data collected from the project advanced understanding of deep Earth processes and geological history. Funding for the Kola project was reduced in the early 1990s as the Soviet Union faced economic challenges and political changes. The official explanation cited budget constraints and shifting research priorities as the reasons for scaling back operations. The drilling facility continued operating at reduced capacity for several more years before being permanently shut down. The Kola borehole was sealed in 2005, and the facility was dismantled. Official records stated that the project had achieved its scientific objectives and that the data collected would continue to benefit geological research for decades. The project had successfully demonstrated the feasibility of extreme depth drilling and had made significant contributions to understanding the Earth's deep structure. But documents released in recent years revealed that the Kola project served another purpose beyond its scientific mission. The public attention focused on this high-profile drilling operation provided cover for other Soviet deep drilling activities that were conducted with far greater secrecy. While scientists at Kola were making legitimate geological discoveries, other drilling teams were operating in locations that didn't appear on any public maps. The secret Siberian operation, Cold War records, now declassified, hint at other Soviet deep drilling projects in Siberia with outcomes never fully disclosed. While the Kola project proceeded with regular scientific reporting, intelligence documents from the 1970s reference additional drilling operations that were classified at levels exceeding nuclear weapons research. These projects operated under different funding structures and reported through channels that bypassed normal scientific oversight. The existence of these classified drilling programs isn't speculation. Documents released in 2019 by the Russian State Archive confirm that the Soviet Union conducted multiple deep drilling operations beyond the publicly known Kola project. The files reference geological research stations in remote Siberian locations that required the highest security clearances and operated under strict communication protocols. The specific locations and depths achieved by these operations remain classified, but the documents confirm they existed. American intelligence agencies were aware of these secret Soviet drilling activities. CIA files from the 1980s describe efforts to monitor Soviet deep drilling operations using satellite surveillance and seismic detection equipment. The Americans detected drilling activity at locations that didn't correspond to any publicly announced Soviet projects. These intelligence reports noted that the Soviet drilling operations were using power sources that suggested more advanced equipment than what was deployed at the Kola site. The technical challenges faced by deep drilling operations during the Cold War often resulted in equipment failures that defied explanation. Both American and Soviet drilling teams reported instruments that would malfunction at extreme depths, producing readings that didn't match known geological conditions. Drill bits would encounter unexpected resistance when passing through rock formations that seismic surveys indicated should be relatively soft. Temperature sensors would register readings that exceeded their operational limits, forcing teams to develop new measurement techniques. These technical anomalies weren't limited to Soviet operations. The American Project Mohole encountered similar unexplained equipment behavior when drilling in the Pacific Ocean. Electronic instruments would produce inconsistent readings at depths where they should have functioned normally. The project's official termination in 1966 cited budget constraints, but internal documents suggest that technical challenges played a significant role in the decision to abandon the operation. The secrecy surrounding these deep drilling programs extended beyond normal military classification protocols. Scientists who worked on classified drilling projects were required to sign agreements that prevented them from discussing their work even decades after the programs ended. The level of secrecy was unusual even by Cold War standards, suggesting that the discoveries made during these operations were considered particularly sensitive. Soviet drilling operations in Siberia faced extreme environmental conditions that pushed equipment beyond its design limits. The remote locations chosen for these projects were selected partly for their isolation, but also because geological surveys indicated unique rock formations that might yield significant discoveries. The harsh climate and difficult terrain made these operations logistically challenging, requiring specialized equipment and personnel who could work in extreme conditions. The timeline of these classified drilling programs shows a pattern of sudden terminations that coincided with reports of unusual discoveries. Multiple Soviet drilling operations were abandoned in the late 1980s after achieving significant depths. The official explanations cited technical problems or budget constraints, but the simultaneous nature of these terminations suggests a coordinated decision to halt deep drilling activities. Intelligence reports from both sides indicate that the discoveries made during these classified drilling programs influenced subsequent geological research. The technical knowledge gained from extreme depth drilling was applied to other projects, including resource exploration and seismic monitoring capabilities. The strategic importance of deep drilling technology became apparent as both superpowers realized its potential applications for military and economic purposes. The most significant of these classified operations reportedly achieved depths that exceeded the Kola project's official record. While the specific details remain classified, intelligence documents reference drilling operations that reached depths of 14 kilometers or more. These operations encountered conditions that challenged existing geological models and forced scientists to develop new theories about the Earth's interior structure. The equipment used in these classified drilling programs represented the most advanced technology available at the time. The power requirements for deep drilling operations were massive, requiring specialized generators and power distribution systems. The drilling bits and support equipment were manufactured using materials that weren't available for commercial applications, reflecting the strategic priority given to these projects. Communication protocols for classified drilling operations were designed to maintain absolute secrecy. Updates were transmitted through encrypted channels that bypassed normal scientific reporting structures. The teams working on these projects were isolated from outside contact, and their communications were monitored by security personnel who ensured that sensitive information didn't leak to unauthorized individuals. The psychological impact on scientists working on these classified projects was significant. The isolation, secrecy, and unusual discoveries created stress that affected team performance and morale. Several scientists requested transfers to other projects, citing the extreme working conditions and the psychological pressure of working on classified research that they couldn't discuss with colleagues or family members. By 1989, the pattern of classified drilling operations had created a network of abandoned sites across Siberia. These facilities were sealed and their locations were removed from public maps. The scientists who had worked on these projects were reassigned to other research programs, and the equipment was either destroyed or transferred to other classified operations. The legacy of these classified drilling programs would influence deep earth research for decades. The technical knowledge gained from extreme depth drilling advanced understanding of geological processes and provided insights into the Earth's interior structure. But the most significant discoveries made during these operations remain classified, creating gaps in scientific knowledge that persist today. The full extent of what was discovered during these classified drilling operations may never be known. But the evidence suggests that Soviet scientists encountered conditions at extreme depths that challenged fundamental assumptions about the Earth's interior. The immediate termination of multiple drilling programs in 1989 marked the end of an era of deep Earth exploration that had pushed the boundaries of human knowledge into uncharted territory. The 1989 incident and whistleblower account. What happened at one of these remote facilities would eventually break through decades of official silence. The drill bit hit the anomaly at exactly 14.4 kilometers depth on March 15, 1989. The drilling team had been working around the clock for weeks, pushing through rock formations that were harder than anything they had encountered at shallower depths. The drill suddenly began rotating erratically, and the instruments showed a dramatic drop in resistance. Within minutes, the drill bit had broken through into empty space. The team's initial reaction was confusion rather than alarm. Caverns at that depth weren't supposed to exist according to any geological model they knew. The temperature readings appeared first. The instruments showed 1,100 degrees Celsius, which was impossible at that depth. Geological predictions suggested the temperature should be around 180 degrees, matching the readings they had recorded at shallower depths. The team checked their instruments multiple times, thinking the sensors had malfunctioned. Every reading confirmed the same result. The drilling team supervisor made the decision to lower specialized recording equipment into the cavity. The equipment array included temperature sensors, gas analyzers, and a microphone designed to detect sounds from geological processes. The team expected to record evidence of underground water movement or gas venting that would explain the temperature anomalies. The equipment descended slowly through the borehole, transmitting data back to the surface as it approached the cavern. The gas analysis revealed compositions that made no scientific sense. The cavern contained air rather than the solid rock or molten material that should exist at 14 kilometers depth. The air was toxic, composed primarily of hydrogen sulfide and other gases that shouldn't exist in those concentrations at that depth. The presence of any gas in a stable form at that temperature and pressure challenged everything the team understood about subsurface conditions. The microphone began transmitting sounds that the team initially dismissed as equipment interference. The sounds were rhythmic and complex, unlike anything produced by known geological processes. The team shut down the drilling equipment to eliminate mechanical noise from their recordings. The sounds continued. They turned off all non-essential electrical equipment at the facility. The sounds persisted, coming clearly from the cavern 14 kilometers below the surface. The audio recordings captured what sounded like human voices, but distorted and amplified in ways that suggested they were coming from a much larger space than the cavern should have been. The voices appeared to be speaking in multiple languages simultaneously, creating a chaotic mixture of sounds that was difficult to understand. The team's linguists identified fragments of Russian, German, and other languages, but the words were often unintelligible due to the acoustic distortion. The drilling team's reaction was immediate and dramatic. Several scientists refused to continue listening to the recordings after the first few minutes. The team's geologist, who had worked on classified projects for over 2 decades, declared that the sounds were impossible and demanded that the recording equipment be retrieved immediately. The team's communications specialist sent an emergency message to Moscow, requesting immediate guidance on how to proceed. Half the scientific team abandoned the project within hours of hearing the recordings. These were experienced researchers who had worked on classified military projects, but they refused to continue participating in the operation. The team's psychologist reported that several scientists were exhibiting symptoms of acute stress and requested medical evaluation. The remaining team members were ordered to continue collecting data despite their concerns about the safety of the operation. The next phase of the incident involved visual phenomena that the team couldn't explain using conventional science. A gas formation emerged from the borehole that was visible from the surface, despite the fact that the cavern was 14 kilometers below ground. The gas appeared to be under pressure and rose in a column that reached several hundred meters into the air. The gas was luminescent, glowing with colors that didn't match any known chemical reactions. The shape of the gas formation was what caused the most panic among the remaining team members. The gas appeared to form geometric patterns that suggested deliberate design rather than random dispersal. Some team members reported seeing shapes that resembled wings or other organic forms within the gas column. The team's photographer took several images of the gas formation, but the photographs were immediately confiscated by security personnel who had arrived at the facility. Medical personnel arrived at the facility within hours of the incident, carrying equipment that wasn't standard for treating industrial accidents. The medical team administered sedatives to all personnel who had been present during the audio recordings in gas formation. The sedatives were described as memory suppressants designed to eliminate short-term memories of traumatic events. The medical team refused to discuss the specific drugs they were using or their intended effects. The facility was evacuated within 48 hours of the incident. The drilling equipment was dismantled and destroyed rather than relocated to another site. The borehole was sealed using concrete and steel barriers that prevented any future access to the cavern. The entire facility was demolished, and the site was restored to its original condition. Satellite imagery from the period shows that the demolition was completed within 2 weeks of the incident. The whistleblower who later revealed details of the incident had been one of the scientists who quit immediately after hearing the recordings. He maintained detailed notes about the operation despite signing secrecy agreements that prohibited him from discussing the project. His account included technical details about the drilling equipment and geological data that weren't publicly available, lending credibility to his claims about the incident. The whistleblower's account raised questions about which elements of the story could be verified using independent evidence. The technical details about drilling procedures and equipment matched information that was later confirmed by other sources. The geological data about temperature and pressure conditions at 14 kilometers depth was consistent with what scientists would expect to find at those depths. The audio recordings and gas formations were more difficult to verify, but the whistleblower provided specific details that suggested first-hand knowledge of the events. The incident's aftermath involved a coordinated effort to discredit the whistleblower's account and prevent similar stories from emerging. The operation's success in maintaining secrecy for several years suggested that similar incidents at other deep drilling sites might also have been successfully covered up. The 1989 incident became public knowledge only because one scientist chose to break his silence, despite the personal and professional risks involved. His decision to come forward would set in motion a chain of events that would transform a classified the audio evidence and media circus. The whistleblower's account might have remained buried in classified files forever if not for a chain of events that began with an obscure religious newsletter in Finland. In late 1989, a small evangelical publication called Anomalies published what appeared to be a factual report about Soviet scientists discovering hell beneath the Earth's surface. The newsletter presented the story as legitimate news, complete with technical details about drilling operations and scientific measurements. The publication had a circulation of just a few hundred readers, but one of those readers had connections to Christian media organizations in the United States. The story made its way to Trinity Broadcasting Network through a series of second- and third-hand accounts that passed through various religious publications. TBN received the story through their International Correspondence Network, which collected reports about religious events and supernatural phenomena from around the world. The network's producers were immediately interested in the story because it seemed to provide scientific evidence for the existence of hell. They decided to broadcast the account without conducting any independent verification of the claims. Trinity Broadcasting Network aired the story in early 1990, presenting it as factual evidence that Soviet scientists had accidentally drilled into hell itself. The television broadcast reached millions of viewers across the United States and internationally through TBN's satellite network. The story was presented by network hosts who treated it as legitimate news rather than an unverified account. The broadcast included dramatic narration about the implications of the discovery and what it meant for Christian theology. The television coverage transformed the story from an obscure newsletter item into a widespread phenomenon. Christian radio stations across the country began discussing the account, and religious publications picked up the story for their own audiences. Each retelling added new details that weren't present in the original account. The story evolved as it spread, gaining elements that made it more dramatic and compelling to audiences who were predisposed to believe in supernatural explanations for unexplained phenomena. The story's evolution accelerated when it reached publications that specialized in sensational news. The Weekly World News, a tabloid known for publishing outrageous stories, created their own version of the account that relocated the incident to Alaska. Their version included details about oil rig workers being killed when demonic forces emerged from the borehole. This version added visual elements that weren't present in the original account, including descriptions of flames and sulfurous smoke rising from the drilling site. The most significant embellishment came from an unexpected source. Age Rendelin, a Norwegian teacher, became disgusted with what he saw as American gullibility regarding supernatural claims. He decided to create a deliberate hoax to expose the lack of fact-checking by Christian media organizations. Rendelin fabricated a detailed account that included a fake translation of a Norwegian newspaper article about the Soviet drilling incident. His fabricated version added the detail of a bat-like creature emerging from the borehole and the phrase, "I have conquered," appearing in flames above the drilling site. Trinity Broadcasting Network received Rendelin's fabricated account and aired it without verifying its authenticity. The network's producers failed to check whether the Norwegian newspaper article actually existed or whether the translation was accurate. The embellished version became the definitive account of the story for many audiences, even though it was entirely fictional. Rendelin later revealed that he had created the hoax specifically to demonstrate how easily false information could spread through Christian media networks. The story reached its largest audience when it was featured on Art Bell's Coast to Coast AM radio show. Bell's program specialized in paranormal and conspiracy-related topics, and it had a devoted following of listeners who were interested in unexplained phenomena. The show's format allowed for extended discussion of mysterious events, and Bell's presentation style made even the most outrageous claims seem plausible to his audience. Coast to Coast AM received an email in 1998 that included an audio recording supposedly captured from the Soviet borehole. The email claimed that the 17-second audio clip contained actual sounds recorded by the drilling team before the project was abandoned. Bell decided to play the recording on his show after warning listeners about its disturbing content. The audio featured what sounded like multiple human voices screaming in agony, accompanied by background noise that suggested extreme heat and atmospheric disturbance. The audio recording became the most compelling piece of evidence supporting this story's claims. The 17-second clip was copied and distributed across early internet networks, appearing on websites devoted to paranormal phenomena and unexplained mysteries. The recording's technical quality made it seem authentic to listeners who lacked audio expertise. The sounds were disturbing enough to convince many people that they were hearing actual evidence of supernatural activity. Audio experts who analyzed the recording discovered its true origin within months of its initial broadcast. The screaming sounds were traced back to sound effects from horror movies, specifically the 1972 film Baron Blood. The background noise was created using standard audio editing techniques that were available to amateur sound engineers. The recording was a complete fabrication, created by combining existing audio elements to produce something that sounded like it could have come from an underground drilling operation. The revelation that the audio was fake should have ended this story's credibility, but it had the opposite effect. Many believers argued that the fake audio was part of a cover-up operation designed to discredit the true account of what happened in Siberia. They claimed that government agencies had created the false audio to make the real story seem ridiculous. This interpretation allowed the story to survive even after its most compelling evidence was debunked. Radio host Rich Buhler conducted an investigation into the story's origins after receiving numerous calls from listeners who wanted to know whether the claims were true. Buhler's research revealed that the story had no verifiable source and that each retelling had added new details that weren't present in earlier versions. His investigation showed that the story had evolved through a chain of publications that never bothered to verify the original claims. The debunking of the audio evidence didn't address the underlying question of whether something unusual had actually happened at the Soviet drilling site. The fake recordings and fabricated details had obscured the original whistleblower account, which included technical details that were harder to dismiss. The supernatural elements that captured public attention were clearly fictional, but the core claim about anomalous discoveries at extreme depths remained unresolved. The story's persistence despite repeated debunking efforts demonstrated how compelling narratives could survive even when their supporting evidence was proven false. The combination of religious themes, government secrecy, and scientific mystery created a story that appealed to audiences who were skeptical of official explanations for unexplained phenomena. The story became embedded in popular culture, appearing in books, documentaries, and internet forums that continued to discuss the claims decades after they were first made. By 2025, advances in drilling technology had reached a point where the technical limitations that plagued Soviet operations in the 1980s were no longer relevant. The equipment and monitoring systems available to modern drilling operations could provide definitive answers to questions that had remained unresolved for decades. Modern deep drilling technology in 2025. Companies like Quaise Energy are now deploying millimeter-wave directed energy beams that can vaporize rock at rates that would have seemed impossible during the Cold War era. This MIT spin-off technology combines conventional rotary drilling with gyrotron-powered millimeter-wave systems that generate electromagnetic waves capable of melting through rock at approximately 3.5 meters per hour. The speed represents a dramatic improvement over any mechanical drilling system ever developed, allowing operations to progress at depths where Soviet equipment would have taken weeks to advance just a few meters. The materials used in modern drill bits can withstand conditions that destroyed Soviet equipment within hours. The new generation of drilling components uses ceramic composites and metal alloys that remain stable at temperatures exceeding 500 degrees Celsius. These materials allow drilling operations to continue at depths where previous technology would have failed completely. The drill bits themselves are manufactured using 3D printing techniques that weren't available to Soviet engineers, with materials that can be customized for specific geological conditions encountered at extreme depths. Temperature monitoring systems in 2025 use quantum sensors that can detect thermal variations with precision that exceeds anything available in the 1980s. These sensors can distinguish between different heat sources at extreme depths, allowing scientists to determine whether elevated temperatures are caused by geothermal activity or other phenomena. The sensors are small enough to be deployed through narrow boreholes, and they can transmit data continuously even under conditions that would have destroyed earlier monitoring equipment. Artificial intelligence systems now guide every aspect of deep drilling operations from planning to execution. The AI algorithms analyze geological data in real time and adjust drilling parameters automatically to optimize progress and prevent equipment failures. These systems can process thousands of variables simultaneously, including rock density, temperature gradients, and pressure changes. The AI can detect patterns in the data that human operators might miss, and it can predict potential problems before they occur. The AI systems also interpret subsurface data using machine learning algorithms that have been trained on decades of geological information. These algorithms can identify anomalies that don't match expected patterns, and they can suggest modifications to drilling procedures to investigate unusual findings. The AI can distinguish between equipment malfunctions and genuine geological anomalies, which eliminates many of the uncertainties that plagued earlier drilling projects. Gas analysis equipment used in current drilling operations can identify chemical compositions that weren't detectable using 1980s technology. The new analyzers can distinguish between naturally occurring gases and artificial compounds, and they can detect trace elements that might indicate the presence of unusual materials. These systems can operate continuously while drilling proceeds, providing real-time updates about atmospheric conditions at extreme depths. Quantum communication systems allow data transmission from depths that were previously impossible to monitor effectively. These systems use quantum entanglement to transmit information instantly, regardless of the distance between the surface and the drill site. The quantum communication eliminates the signal degradation that affected earlier monitoring systems, and it allows operators to maintain constant contact with equipment operating at extreme depths. International collaboration in deep drilling has replaced the secretive competition that characterized Cold War-era projects. Scientists from multiple countries now work together on drilling projects that share data and technology across national boundaries. This cooperation has accelerated technological development and reduced the costs associated with deep drilling research. The collaborative approach has also eliminated much of the secrecy that surrounded earlier drilling projects. The current generation of drilling projects is focused on reaching the Earth's mantle, which lies beneath the crust at depths that were impossible to achieve using earlier technology. The mantle contains materials that could provide insights into planetary formation and the development of life on Earth. The temperatures and pressures at mantle depths require technology that can operate in conditions far more extreme than anything encountered during the Cold War era. Several countries are now racing to reach depths that were impossible in the 1980s. But the competition is driven by scientific curiosity rather than military advantage. The race to reach the mantle is being conducted openly, with regular publication of results and sharing of technological innovations. This transparency contrasts sharply with the secrecy that surrounded Soviet drilling operations. The new drilling capabilities are being used to revisit locations where earlier projects encountered unexplained phenomena. Teams of scientists are returning to sites that were abandoned suddenly during the Cold War era, using modern technology to investigate anomalies that couldn't be explained using 1980s equipment. These investigations have revealed evidence that some of the original claims about unusual discoveries were based on genuine observations rather than equipment malfunctions. The Kola Superdeep Borehole site has been re-examined using modern sensing equipment that can detect conditions that Soviet instruments couldn't measure. The new analysis has confirmed that some of the anomalies reported by the original drilling team were real phenomena rather than measurement errors. The temperatures and gas compositions that seemed impossible in the 1980s are now understood to be unusual but not supernatural. Modern drilling operations have detected similar anomalies at other deep drilling sites around the world. The pattern of discoveries suggests that the Earth's interior contains conditions and materials that weren't predicted by geological models developed during the Cold War era. These discoveries are being investigated using scientific methods rather than being suppressed or classified as they were during the 1980s. The technological advances that allow deeper drilling have also revealed that some of the claims made by Soviet scientists were more accurate than previously believed. The extreme temperatures and unusual gas compositions that seemed impossible using 1980s understanding are now known to occur naturally at certain depths. The new technology has validated some of the original claims while debunking others that were clearly fabricated. The race to reach unprecedented depths continues as multiple nations launch ambitious drilling programs that dwarf the scale of Cold War-era projects. These operations are targeting geological formations that have remained unexplored for millions of years, using technology that can penetrate deeper into the Earth than any previous human endeavor. Current global deep drilling projects. Several nations have launched drilling programs that target specific geological formations identified through decades of research. China's Tarim Basin project began in March 2025, using millimeter wave technology combined with artificial intelligence systems to reach depths exceeding 13,000 meters. The Chinese operation has already surpassed the Kola record and aims to reach 15,000 meters using automated systems that can operate continuously for weeks without human intervention. The Chinese drilling team has encountered anomalies similar to those reported by Soviet scientists in the 1980s. At depths exceeding 12,000 meters, they discovered caverns that weren't predicted by geological surveys. These caverns contain gas mixtures that don't match known atmospheric compositions, and temperatures significantly higher than thermal models suggested. The Chinese team has reported these findings to international scientific organizations, though the data remains classified pending further analysis. Japan operates 3 separate deep drilling projects in the Nankai Trough, where the Philippine Sea Plate subducts beneath the Eurasian Plate. These operations focus on understanding earthquake mechanics by reaching depths where seismic activity originates. The Japanese have developed flexible drill bits that maintain effectiveness even when surrounding rock shifts during drilling operations. Their projects have reached depths exceeding 10,000 meters in areas where conventional drilling would be impossible due to seismic activity. The Japanese teams have discovered that the interface between tectonic plates contains materials that don't match predictions based on surface geological analysis. They have detected flowing water at depths where pressure and temperature should prevent any liquid from existing. Chemical analysis reveals mineral compositions suggesting this water has been isolated from surface water for millions of years. The European Union established the Deep Earth Consortium in 2024, combining drilling expertise from Germany, France, and Norway. The consortium operates drilling sites in Iceland, where volcanic activity provides access to geological formations difficult to reach elsewhere. European operations use quantum sensors that can detect conditions at depths exceeding 15,000 meters, providing data unavailable to earlier drilling projects. European drilling teams have made discoveries that challenge existing geological models. At depths exceeding 11,000 meters, they have encountered rock formations that appear artificially structured rather than naturally occurring. These formations contain materials that don't match any known mineral compositions, and their geometric patterns suggest deliberate design rather than natural geological processes. The European team has shared this data with international research organizations, though the implications remain unclear. The United States has renewed its deep drilling programs after a 2-decade hiatus. New American projects focus on locations in Alaska and Nevada where geological conditions allow access to extreme depths using modern drilling technology. These operations use a combination of military and civilian personnel, suggesting strategic importance beyond scientific research. The drilling sites are located on military installations that restrict public access and media coverage. American projects have achieved depths exceeding 14,000 meters using technology that combines elements from international drilling programs. American teams have detected conditions matching reports from the 1989 Soviet incident, including caverns containing toxic gas mixtures and temperature readings exceeding geological predictions. The operations have encountered electromagnetic anomalies suggesting the presence of materials or energy sources that don't exist in nature. Private companies have invested over $50 billion in deep drilling technology during the past 3 years. These investments focus on developing drilling equipment that can reach the Earth's mantle, which contains materials that could revolutionize mining and energy production. Private drilling operations are conducted by companies with contracts spanning multiple governments, creating partnerships that blur lines between civilian and military research. The competition to reach the Earth's mantle has intensified as countries recognize the strategic importance of accessing materials that don't exist on the surface. The mantle contains rare earth elements and metals essential for manufacturing advanced electronics and military equipment. The first country to develop reliable access to mantle materials will gain significant advantages in technology and manufacturing. Several drilling projects have reported anomalous findings that match patterns described in Soviet reports from the 1980s. These discoveries include caverns at depths where solid rock should exist, gas mixtures that don't match known atmospheric compositions, and temperature readings exceeding geological predictions. The consistency of these reports across multiple drilling sites suggests that the Earth's interior contains conditions not predicted by models developed during the Cold War era. International protocols now exist for handling unusual discoveries at extreme depths. These protocols were established after drilling teams at multiple sites reported finding conditions that couldn't be explained using conventional geological science. The protocols require drilling teams to report anomalous findings to international oversight committees that include representatives from multiple countries and scientific organizations. Modern drilling projects are deliberately avoiding certain geographic locations where earlier operations encountered unexplained phenomena. These exclusion zones include areas in Siberia where Soviet drilling projects were terminated suddenly, locations in Alaska where American projects encountered similar anomalies, and regions in the Arctic where multiple countries have reported unusual discoveries. The exclusion zones are maintained through informal agreements between countries rather than formal treaties. The pattern of avoidance suggests that governments are aware of conditions at certain locations that they consider too dangerous or sensitive for continued exploration. The excluded areas are monitored using satellite surveillance and seismic detection equipment, but no active drilling operations are permitted. This coordinated avoidance indicates that the international community has agreed that some discoveries are too significant to pursue without careful consideration of the consequences. The global expansion of deep drilling capabilities has created a network of projects that share technology and data while maintaining operational independence. This cooperation has accelerated technological development and reduced costs associated with deep earth exploration. The collaborative approach has also created standardized procedures for handling discoveries that don't fit existing scientific models. Despite these international protocols and exclusion zones, monitoring systems continue to detect unusual activity at locations that were supposed to remain permanently sealed. These detection systems operate continuously, scanning for any signs that abandoned drilling sites might be experiencing renewed activity that could indicate unauthorized operations or natural phenomena requiring immediate investigation. The 2025 Siberian Reactivation. The first confirmation came from seismic monitoring stations across northern Russia on January 8, 2025. The sensors detected rhythmic vibrations matching the frequency patterns of heavy drilling equipment. The readings originated from coordinates corresponding to the abandoned Soviet facility where the 1989 incident had occurred. The monitoring stations were operated by the International Seismic Network, which tracks geological activity across the globe. Technicians who detected the anomalous readings initially assumed their equipment was malfunctioning. The site had been sealed and abandoned for over 3 decades, with no drilling operations supposed to be active in that region. The seismic readings continued for 72 hours before monitoring stations confirmed that the signals came from active drilling equipment. The vibration patterns matched signatures of advanced drilling systems more sophisticated than anything used at the site during the 1980s. The seismic data indicated drilling was occurring at depths exceeding the original 14.4-kilometer limit. The equipment appeared to operate continuously, suggesting someone had reactivated the facility using technology unavailable when the site was originally abandoned. The Russian government initially denied any knowledge of renewed activity at the site. Official statements claimed the facility remained sealed and that no government agency had authorized drilling operations in the region. The denials became difficult to maintain as satellite imagery confirmed the presence of new equipment and personnel at the location. The images showed vehicles, temporary structures, and drilling equipment that hadn't been present during previous surveillance flights. The international community responded by assembling a joint investigation team that included representatives from multiple countries. The team was organized through the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs, which had experience coordinating international responses to unusual scientific discoveries. The investigation team included geologists, engineers, and security personnel from the United States, Norway, Germany, and Japan. The team was given authority to investigate the site and determine who was responsible for the reactivation. The investigation team arrived at the Siberian site on January 15, 2025, and immediately encountered evidence that challenged their understanding of what had happened at the location. The original facility buildings were still standing, but they had been extensively modified using construction techniques that didn't match Soviet engineering practices from the 1980s. The modifications included advanced electrical systems, sophisticated communications equipment, and environmental controls designed to support long-term operations in extreme conditions. The drilling equipment at the site was completely different from what the Soviet team had used during the original operation. The new equipment included millimeter-wave drilling systems that could vaporize rock at rates exceeding anything available to commercial drilling operations. The drilling tower was twice the height of the original structure, incorporating materials that weren't available during the Cold War era. The equipment was operating autonomously using artificial intelligence systems that guided every aspect of the drilling process. The investigation team discovered that the drilling equipment had been operating remotely for several months before seismic monitoring stations detected the activity. The equipment was controlled through quantum communication systems that allowed real-time operation from locations thousands of kilometers away. The communication systems used encryption protocols that the investigation team couldn't decode, suggesting the operators had access to advanced cybersecurity technology. The borehole itself had been extended far beyond the original 14.4-kilometer depth. The investigation team's measurements indicated the hole now reached depths exceeding 18 kilometers, deeper than any drilling operation had achieved during the Cold War era. The extended drilling had been accomplished using techniques that could maintain structural integrity at extreme depths. The hole was lined with materials that prevented collapse even under extreme pressure conditions found at those depths. The investigation team lowered sensors into the extended borehole and discovered conditions that matched the anomalies reported during the 1989 incident. The caverns detected by the original Soviet team were still present, but they had been expanded through continued drilling operations. The caverns contained gas mixtures that didn't match any known atmospheric compositions, and temperatures were significantly higher than geological models predicted. The sensors detected electromagnetic signatures suggesting the presence of materials or energy sources that didn't exist in nature. The advanced technology found at the site didn't match any known drilling systems used by government agencies or private companies. The equipment incorporated innovations that were decades ahead of publicly available technology. The materials used in construction were composed of alloys that weren't available through commercial suppliers. The investigation team concluded that the equipment had been developed using research programs that weren't publicly disclosed. The question of who could have been responsible for the reactivation became more complex as the investigation team analyzed the evidence. The technology required to operate the equipment remotely suggested that the operators had access to resources exceeding the capabilities of most government agencies. The quantum communication systems and artificial intelligence controls indicated that the operators had developed technology more advanced than anything used by known deep drilling programs. The investigation team discovered that the extended drilling operation had produced discoveries that went far beyond the original 1989 incident. The deeper boreholes had encountered materials that challenged existing geological models. The materials included metallic compounds that didn't match any known mineral formations and organic substances that shouldn't exist at those depths and temperatures. The investigation team collected samples of these materials for analysis by independent laboratories. The electromagnetic signatures detected by the sensors suggested that the extended drilling had accessed energy sources that weren't previously known to exist within the Earth's interior. The energy signatures were consistent across multiple measurement systems, indicating that the readings weren't caused by equipment malfunctions. The investigation team concluded that the drilling operation had discovered phenomena that couldn't be explained using current scientific understanding. The investigation team's analysis revealed that the 1989 incident had been just the beginning of a much larger operation. The original Soviet drilling team had encountered conditions suggesting the presence of artificial structures or energy sources deep within the Earth. The extended drilling operation had continued to explore these conditions using technology specifically designed to investigate the anomalies. The findings suggested that someone had been studying the discoveries from the original incident for over 3 decades. The investigation team's final report concluded that the reactivation of the Siberian site was part of a coordinated effort to continue research that had been interrupted by the collapse of the Soviet Union. The advanced technology and remote operation capabilities suggested that the operators had access to resources exceeding the capabilities of individual governments. The discoveries made during the extended drilling operation indicated that the Earth's interior contained conditions and materials that hadn't been predicted by existing scientific models. What the investigation team retrieved from those depths: new evidence and scientific analysis. Laboratory analysis of the retrieved samples began immediately at 3 independent facilities. The German laboratory at the Max Planck Institute conducted comprehensive analysis using X-ray photoelectron spectroscopy and mass spectrometry. The results showed metallic compounds that didn't match any known mineral formations found on Earth. The metals were arranged in crystalline structures that appeared artificially created rather than naturally occurring. The German team ran the analysis multiple times using different equipment to confirm their findings. Every test produced identical results. The Japanese laboratory at the Tokyo Institute of Technology focused on isotopic analysis of the samples. Their equipment detected isotope ratios that were impossible according to current understanding of planetary formation. The samples contained elements with isotopic signatures suggesting they had been created through nuclear processes that don't occur naturally on Earth. The Japanese team concluded that the materials had been artificially manufactured using techniques beyond current human capabilities. The American laboratory at Los Alamos National Laboratory conducted neutron activation analysis and discovered that the samples contained trace amounts of synthetic elements never detected in natural geological formations. These elements had atomic structures that remained stable under conditions where they should have decayed immediately. The American team determined that the samples contained materials that couldn't have been created through known natural processes. The biological analysis revealed the most disturbing discovery. Multiple laboratories detected microorganisms that were alive and reproducing at depths where life shouldn't exist. The organisms were thriving in temperatures exceeding 800 degrees Celsius and pressure conditions that should have destroyed any known life forms. The microorganisms had cellular structures completely different from any previously discovered species on Earth. The microorganisms contained DNA sequences that didn't match any known genetic patterns. The genetic material was organized in ways that suggested artificial modification rather than natural evolution. The organisms appeared to be using energy sources that weren't available through normal biological processes. They were metabolizing materials that were toxic to all known life forms and converting them into compounds that hadn't been seen in nature. Acoustic analysis of recordings from the extended borehole revealed sounds completely different from the debunked 1989 audio. The new recordings were captured using quantum sensors that could detect acoustic signatures with precision exceeding anything available during the Cold War era. The sounds were complex and organized in patterns that suggested artificial origin rather than natural geological processes. The acoustic patterns contained frequencies that were mathematically precise and repeated in sequences that appeared deliberately structured. The sounds weren't random noise or equipment interference. They formed patterns that resembled communication signals or data transmission rather than natural phenomena. Cryptographers who analyzed the recordings concluded that the sounds might represent some form of encoded information. Quantum sensors deployed in the extended borehole detected energy signatures that had no known natural explanation. The energy readings were consistent across multiple measurement systems and couldn't be attributed to equipment malfunctions. The energy signatures suggested the presence of power sources operating at depths where no natural energy sources should exist. The energy signatures were organized in patterns suggesting they were being generated by artificial systems rather than natural processes. The power levels detected by the sensors exceeded anything that could be produced by known geological phenomena. The energy was being transmitted through rock formations using methods that weren't possible according to current understanding of physics. The most significant discovery was the detection of artificial structures embedded in rock formations at depths exceeding 17 kilometers. The structures appeared to be manufactured from materials that weren't found anywhere else on Earth. They were geometric in shape and appeared to be components of larger systems that extended beyond the reach of the drilling equipment. The structures contained internal spaces filled with the same toxic gases that had been detected during the original 1989 incident. The gases were under pressure and maintained at temperatures that suggested they were being actively regulated by mechanical systems. The structures appeared designed to contain and control these gases for purposes that weren't immediately apparent. Multiple independent laboratories confirmed the anomalous findings through separate analysis of the same samples. The consistency of results across different laboratories and different analytical methods eliminated the possibility that the discoveries were caused by contamination or equipment failures. The materials and organisms retrieved from the extended borehole were genuine discoveries that challenged existing scientific understanding. Similar anomalies were now being detected at other deep drilling sites worldwide. The Chinese drilling operation in the Tarim Basin had encountered materials that matched the isotopic signatures found in the Siberian samples. The Japanese drilling projects in the Nankai Trough had detected energy signatures identical to those recorded at the Siberian site. The European Drilling Consortium had discovered microorganisms that were genetically similar to those found in the extended Siberian borehole. The pattern of discoveries across multiple drilling sites suggested that the Earth's interior contained artificial systems that were distributed globally rather than being limited to specific locations. The consistency of findings indicated that these systems were connected through networks that spanned continents. The discoveries suggested that previous geological models had been fundamentally incomplete. The evidence from the extended Siberian borehole supported claims that governments had been aware of these anomalies for decades. The advanced technology found at the reactivated site indicated that someone had been studying these discoveries continuously since the original 1989 incident. The sophisticated equipment and remote operation capabilities suggested that the research had been conducted using resources that exceeded the capabilities of individual government agencies. The discoveries validated some claims made by the original Soviet drilling team while debunking others that were clearly fabricated. The extreme temperatures and toxic gases that seemed impossible in 1989 were now confirmed to exist at those depths. The artificial structures and manufactured materials that the Soviet team had reported were proven to be real discoveries rather than equipment malfunctions or deliberate hoaxes. The scientific analysis had provided evidence that the Earth's interior contained systems and materials that challenged everything scientists thought they knew about planetary formation and the development of life. But the implications went far beyond scientific curiosity. The pattern of government responses to these discoveries suggested that intelligence agencies had been tracking similar anomalies for much longer than anyone realized. The cover-up conspiracy and hidden agenda. Documents released in 2024 revealed that intelligence agencies had been tracking deep Earth anomalies since the 1960s. The Central Intelligence Agency maintained files on over 40 drilling projects worldwide that were terminated after encountering unexplained phenomena. The files contained reports from American facilities in Alaska, Colorado, and Nevada where drilling operations ceased immediately after teams reported conditions that contradicted geological models. The Soviet Union experienced similar incidents at sites throughout Siberia and the Arctic, with projects abandoned at depths where equipment should have continued functioning normally. The pattern of cancellations followed a consistent timeline that suggested coordination between agencies. American drilling projects in Alaska were terminated in 1973 after reaching 11 kilometers depth. A Soviet project in Kazakhstan was abandoned the same year at identical depths. Officials from both countries cited technical difficulties, but the synchronization of these decisions indicated that information was being shared between intelligence organizations despite the ongoing Cold War. The pattern repeated throughout the 1970s and 1980s, with projects on both sides being canceled whenever drilling teams encountered specific types of anomalies. The classified documents revealed that both the CIA and KGB had established dedicated units to study what they internally called subsurface anomalies. These units operated independently from official scientific organizations and reported directly to senior intelligence officials. The units recruited scientists who had worked on classified military projects, ensuring that personnel understood the importance of maintaining operational security. The scientists were required to sign agreements that prevented them from discussing their work with colleagues outside the units. The documents described a classification system that designated certain discoveries as Category 7 findings, requiring immediate project termination and memory suppression protocols for personnel involved. Category 7 incidents occurred at drilling sites where teams encountered artificial structures, manufactured materials, or energy sources that couldn't be explained using known scientific principles. The classification system was used by both American and Soviet agencies, suggesting that intelligence cooperation extended beyond the official diplomatic channels. A network of scientists had been quietly studying these anomalies outside official channels for over 3 decades. The network included researchers from universities, government laboratories, and private companies who had access to data from terminated drilling projects. These scientists communicated through encrypted channels and shared information about discoveries that were too sensitive for publication in mainstream scientific journals. The network operated under the assumption that official agencies were suppressing information about deep Earth anomalies for reasons that weren't publicly disclosed. The network's research suggested that the original sounds from Hell hoax had been deliberately created to discredit genuine discoveries. The fabricated audio recordings and supernatural elements were designed to make any claims about deep Earth anomalies seem ridiculous to mainstream scientists and the general public. The hoax was so successful that it effectively ended serious scientific discussion about deep Earth discoveries for over a decade. The network concluded that the hoax was part of a coordinated disinformation campaign designed to prevent public awareness of real discoveries. The strategic importance of controlling access to deep Earth resources became clear as the network's research progressed. The artificial structures and manufactured materials discovered at extreme depths suggested that the Earth's interior contained technologies that were far more advanced than anything available on the surface. The energy sources detected at these depths could revolutionize power generation and provide strategic advantages to any country that could access them. The materials found at extreme depths included elements that were essential for advanced electronics and military applications. Private military contractors began appearing at deep drilling sites in the early 2000s, replacing government personnel at facilities that had previously been operated by civilian scientists. The contractors were employed by companies that specialized in handling classified research projects for multiple government agencies. The contractors had security clearances that exceeded those of most government employees, and they operated under agreements that prevented them from discussing their work with anyone outside their immediate supervisors. The involvement of private contractors created a network of companies that shared information about deep Earth discoveries while maintaining operational independence from government oversight. These companies operated facilities in multiple countries, allowing them to continue research even when individual governments decided to terminate their deep drilling programs. The contractors developed technology that was specifically designed to investigate deep Earth anomalies, including equipment that could operate at depths and temperatures that exceeded the capabilities of standard drilling systems. The 2025 Siberian reactivation was revealed to be part of this contractor network rather than a mysterious unauthorized operation. The advanced technology found at the site had been developed by companies that had been studying deep Earth anomalies for over 2 decades. The remote operation capabilities and quantum communication systems were products of research programs that had been funded by intelligence agencies from multiple countries. The reactivation was conducted by personnel who had been involved in similar operations at other deep drilling sites worldwide. The evidence suggested that governments feared the discovery of technologies that could destabilize existing power structures. The artificial systems detected at extreme depths appeared to be components of larger networks that spanned continents. The discovery of these networks could lead to technological breakthroughs that would make current military and industrial capabilities obsolete. The governments involved in deep drilling research had concluded that controlled access to these discoveries was essential for maintaining global stability. The contractor network had been established to ensure that deep Earth research continued even as official government programs were terminated or scaled back. The network operated under the assumption that the discoveries made at extreme depths were too important to be left to individual governments or civilian scientists. The contractors had developed protocols for investigating deep Earth anomalies while maintaining operational security and preventing unauthorized disclosure of sensitive information. The network's research had revealed that deep Earth anomalies were distributed globally rather than being limited to specific geographic locations. The artificial structures and energy sources detected at extreme depths were connected through systems that operated independently of surface conditions. The network concluded that these systems had been functioning for periods that exceeded human civilization and that their origins were unknown using current scientific understanding. The pattern of discoveries across multiple drilling sites indicated that the cover-up had been necessary to prevent public panic and maintain international stability. The implications of discovering advanced technologies at extreme depths were too significant to be handled through normal scientific channels. The network concluded that the controlled disclosure of these discoveries was essential for preventing technological disruption and maintaining existing power structures. But the 2025 discoveries have made it impossible to maintain the secrecy that protected these operations for decades. The evidence retrieved from the extended Siberian borehole, combined with similar findings at drilling sites worldwide, has created a body of scientific data that can no longer be suppressed or discredited. The artificial systems operating deep beneath the Earth's surface represent a reality that challenges everything we thought we knew about our planet. What we've uncovered forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth about our own planet. The evidence from 2025 confirms that our planet contains artificial systems operating at depths we barely comprehend. The metallic structures, synthetic organisms, and energy sources detected at 18 kilometers depth aren't natural formations. They represent technologies that predate human civilization by unknown periods. The contractor networks, government cover-ups, and coordinated suppression of discoveries all point to one conclusion. Something built these systems deep within the Earth, and they're still functioning. The Kola project reached just 0.2% of the distance to Earth's center. We've explored less than 1%.